interview with Steve Palazzolo from PFF on the Wincinnati pod. Welcome. It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
I'm AC. We got a special show as always.
The voice of the Bengals.
Dan Ford,
Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon.
The name of this thing is called Wincinnati, and I'm not going to stop.
Talk to us about that roller coaster, Steve.
I'm still going to give you the same AJ.
I'm going to work as hard as I can to be the best.
Always working ever since I met y'all, boy.
I got to get you a top 5 receiver.
Better, man. Good. Watch out for us.
Welcome to another episode of the Wincinnati pod. I'm chilling in here. Just had some breakfast, a late breakfast in here with my son, chilling for a little bit, playing some 2K. Not like me. I actually do work, but today I'm not doing that much work. But I had a great opportunity to have a special interview. So I wanted to be able to talk to you guys, make sure we connect. We haven't had that many shows after the draft, and I thought it was really important that we kind of get outside in, like perspectives, different people to just talk to us about different things. We've been having conversations, I think, in like spaces, whether it be playback in different platforms. And I think there's like this constant back and forth on, is the 2024 roster better for the Bengals? And, you might be hot or cold on a different guy in the draft. You got all these different aspects of the team that I think people are unsure of. But I do rely on professionals. I do rely on cited sources and different people that I really trust in the industry. And I think that's why we have like these special interviews sometimes. And I'm doing it during the day. So hopefully you're at work and you just snuck off from your boss and you just snuck off somewhere and you're like in the corner watching this. But special interview with Steve Palazzolo from PFF. No more BS. I just want to bring it right in. I don't want to hold him back from, I know he's itching to get in here and get some. Steve, how you doing today?
Doing great. Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. So I have seen your a couple of clips since the draft. There are some guys that I or at least one guy that we're really excited about that I've seen you very excited about as well too. Can I get your overall thoughts on the Bengals draft in its totality before we go into like individual players?
Yeah, I liked it overall. I mean, I think, we've been talking about the Bengals going with a tackle in the first round over the last couple of years. I think the value matched up with Amarius Mims there. So they have an opportunity to start building that with the long term in mind and not just, piecing it together with veteran tackles. So I think that's exciting. Getting a playmaker like Kris Jenkins in the second round, I thought was good value. We'll talk about Jermaine Burton, of course, the receiver in the third. But I just thought the value was good for those first 3 picks. I liked the concept of doubling up a tight end with Eric All, Tanner McLaughlin. Just when you're looking to solve a position, I like the idea of taking 2 day 3 picks and taking a shot at it. So the depth I think that they've potentially added with the draft is important, and I also think they've got 3 capable starters maybe with those top 3 picks. So I really like the draft overall.
That's awesome. When the draft was happening in real time, a lot of Bengals fans, including myself, we were like big Brock Bowers fans. I don't know if that's just like a lot of people influencing us, and then we would grind out tape, we would watch different things, and then you're thinking about constantly, how can this guy work in this draft? Give me the comparison if you're on the clock. Brock Bowers is there and Amarius Mims is there. Sell me on either one of those, like in that instance, because I know a lot of people keep on asking me about like, why didn't the Bengals trade up? I just want to see like, what do you think if you had that same opportunity?
I think the argument for Brock Bowers is, okay, we've got Joe Burrow under, he's our guy, and we want to have as many playmakers as possible, right? My theory on winning in the NFL is you want to make the defense as uncomfortable as possible. This isn't groundbreaking. So a Jamar Chase with a Brock Bowers, with, however long T. Higgins is around, I mean, all of that makes the defense really uncomfortable, right? So that is the argument for Brock Bowers, a unique skill set, after the catch type of tight end, great ball skills. Love Brock Bowers as a player. The argument against Brock Bowers and for, say, a tackle like Amarius Mims is when you start to get into the financials and you start to get into the actual team building aspect of things. I think Brock Bowers would be a good deal for a tight end, most likely. But the scarcity of tackle, we know how difficult it's been for the Bengals to find a young tackle, and presumably they're not going to be picking at 18. going forward, right? We're assuming health from Joe Burrow. We're assuming they're picking 32nd or at least in the late 20s, right? It is difficult to find a starting tackle. I'm not saying it's easy to find a Brock Bowers, but you need to have those tackles, and those first contract tackles are actually really valuable assets as well. So I think that's where some of that discussion goes. You take the tackle. It doesn't feel great for a lot of fan bases. You like to see the shiny, flashy, Madden player, but I think having the tackle makes a lot of sense because you might not. It was a deep tackle class, and you don't have opportunities to get that guy in the future here.
The one thing, all right, so initially in this conversation, I was on the side of the financial, like the savings that you get from it, like saying you're drafting like a skill position at the top of the draft. You're paying pretty much like a third or a fourth of what these wide receivers are currently making. Isn't there an argument also too to talk about, like, I'm guessing now that the Raiders now have 2 tight ends or whatever, like even at its height, wouldn't the new argument now be, and this might be like a changing of the guards, and I'm pretty sure the players will fight for this. Wouldn't it be now when they're drafted, they would be paid like top of their class, but later on, say that the guy ends up playing really, really well. Is that like a new strategy you could see like in the NFL where guys are saying, okay, let's invest heavy in the tight end position because we'll never have to pay him like we would a skill position like a wide receiver?
Yeah, I mean, if you knew that the tight end was going to be that good, right? I mean, so Kyle Pitts went number 4 overall, but has he actually produced better than Jamar Chase, who went the next pick? Absolutely not. And so Kyle Pitts hasn't produced at the same level as a wide receiver. So it's one of those things, like if you could assure me that a guy was a Travis Kelce or a Mark Andrews or obviously Gronk in his prime, if you could assure me I'm getting a top 5 tight end, then I think there's a great argument to be said that top 5 tight end is absolutely worth what top of the market tight end money because it's way less than what a wide receiver gets. But in the draft, there's always uncertainty. I can watch the tape all day and love Brock Bowers left and right, but there's still some level of uncertainty there. There's still a chance it takes him 2 or 3 years to figure it out. There's still a chance that he doesn't get all the way there, that he's not as good as a Travis Kelce or a Mark Andrews, right? So that's the risk part of it. If I knew that I was getting that tight end, though,
Right.
That makes sense, right? To be able to get him at basically a cheap price for a high value target.
Great point. I will say this too. We know the value of the tackle position that you ironed out, you laid out. I think initially the thoughts were, even myself, I was a little reluctant when the pick came across. I knew that it probably was going to be Mims because when I was looking at the whole entire board, I'm saying, out of all these guys currently right now, what is the most valued pick and I think like the highest ceiling out of all these guys? For anyone that hasn't watched Amarius Mims, what could you tell them about, Amarius and your assessment and how you think that he'll do in the NFL? And I know a lot of people talk about like the lack of games started. I don't necessarily, me personally, think that makes him raw. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he got compared. Mims got compared to Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma quite a bit as a quote-unquote developmental tackle. I think Mims is way better than Guyton as a player right now. And Mims has only played 800-plus snaps, just over 800 snaps in college. So, yeah, I mean, there's like a little, again, uncertainty with any draft pick there. But at 340 pounds, he moves extremely well. You could see the technique issues every now and again. He'll be lunging in the run game and in the pass game. But I think he's got all the tools to play either side of the line, the athleticism to play on either side of the line if needed, and the athleticism to continue to get better. Better pass protector than run blocker at the moment. And again, that's okay, I think, in today's NFL, especially with the quick passing game and the spread running game that I think, gives offensive linemen a better chance to not have to just, crush people at the line of scrimmage like they did, 15, 20 years ago. So I like Mims as a prospect. The lack of experience isn't a huge factor for me. I thought he played well at Georgia when he was out there. And again, I don't think he was as raw as, say, even Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, who I think does need some work and might get some on-the-job training with Dallas. That might not go all that well.
Okay, moving right along, we go to our next draft pick, second-round pick, Kris Jenkins. What can you say about him? I know he had the number 1 run-stop rate, I think, for PFF as far as college. I don't know if that's over his whole entire tenure in college, but did you have any thoughts or did you like that pick? Were you hot or cold on that? I know you talked about the defensive tackle possibly in the first round, but here we are, second round.
I mean, Jenkins' run stop rate, I mean, over the course of his career is up there with a guy like Leonard Williams, who was, came out in 2015, has had a great career. Guys like Quinnen Williams from the Jets. So he makes a lot of plays. He's a different style player, though. Obviously, I think a lot of Bengals fans were saying, hey, we have to replace DJ Reader, 340 pounds, who's eating up double teams and making plays. Kris Jenkins isn't that guy. Right. He doesn't eat up. He's not that, hold the point, double team type of guy. But, man, he knows how to shed blocks and work his way up and down the line of scrimmage. So I think what you get from Jenkins is that around the line of scrimmage playmaking, especially in the run game, getting teams into, 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8. He will make plays, but he's not that all-around defensive tackle, or certainly not a nose tackle the way a DJ Reader was. That's just going to completely shut down the run game because he's eating up blockers and defeating blockers as well and making, those freak plays that a Reader would make. So, look, I like Jenkins a lot as a run stuffer, the way he plays. I think he's an okay pass rusher, not great. There's a reason why he was below, Byron Murphy II or even a Johnny Newton. I think those guys have more pass rush potential, but Jenkins is a good athlete, could still develop there. But I think he's just a playmaker against the run. And again, pretty good value getting him in the 2nd round.
Yeah. He kind of reminds me of, I don't know if this would be like his ceiling, but Daron Payne. That's the guy that I keep on kind of watching, and I say, well, I hope he gets to that level, but I don't know.
Yeah, different size. I mean, Payne's bigger, but he plays a little bit more like Jenkins, right? He's on the move a little bit more.
Gap.
Yeah, exactly. Shooting gaps and working his way up and down the line of scrimmage like a Jenkins would.
Going on to the 3rd round pick. Now, we're Bengals fans here, so it's just natural for us. I don't know if this is something that, created who I am as a Bengals fan, but I talk about this all the time. No matter what, you talk to a Bengals fan, we're going to talk about wide receivers. We get to the 3rd round pick. This is a guy that was so off my radar because in the Zach Taylor era, I felt as though they weren't taking any questionable guys, anybody that had any bit of off the field issues or any perceived off the field issues or anything like that. Jermaine Burton, I didn't watch a lot of him before the draft. When they called his name, I was like, what? You know what I mean? Because I've seen him. I'm not a big college buff guy. I'm a big NFL guy or whatever. But I've heard you speak about Jermaine Burton. It was part of the reason why I was like, man, I got to get Steve on here. Talk to the people about how you feel like Jermaine Burton could impact this offense for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, so I got to him a little bit later in my wide receiver scouting as well. I mean, I'd probably watched 15-plus receivers before I got to Burton, in part because that's where he ranked on the consensus board. He was expected to go maybe 3rd or 4th round. And I started watching him. I was 3 plays in and just blown away. Like 3 plays into his film and absolutely blown away with his speed, his second gear down the field, his ability to track the ball, and then his hands and his natural athleticism. And, again, a handful of plays into watching him, I'm thinking he looks like a 1st-round talent. What's the problem? What's going on here? So this was my first time actually digging in and, asking around. It's like, well, the off-field is bad, right? It's not just the off-field. It's bad, and you're not getting a whole lot of kind comments from the 2 places where he played in Alabama and Georgia. He bounced around a lot, a whole bunch of different schools. So that's the downside, I guess, to Burton. And then I said, the talent's just too much. I don't know if he ends up at, like Tyreek Hill in the 5th round. I don't know if he goes undrafted. Started asking around more. Is he off boards? He's off a lot of boards, right? He's not even going to go. But I just know the Bengals situation here with T. Higgins and, the uncertainty there, the fact that you never want to have a situation where Joe Burrow is just carrying the team and doesn't have the playmakers to throw to. That's why they made it to the Super Bowl, because they had a legitimate trio of receivers and solid tight ends and a good running game and Joe Burrow playing great. Like, that's how you always want it to be. But you can't pay for that all the time. So I think those rookie first contract receivers are huge. And so I think Burton has a chance to be one of the most important picks in the entire draft, because I think he has 1st-round talent. And if they do keep his head on straight, keep him, ready to go week in, week out, I think Burton has incredible talent. He's got one of the best drop rates we've ever seen since 2014, since we started this in PFF. So incredible hands. I think he's a weapon in the back shoulder game. I think he's an excellent vertical threat. Again, the speed, ball skills, body control, second gear, ball tracking. The only thing you didn't necessarily see on film in college is short area stuff, running slants and, little in, quick out, that type of stuff. You didn't see quick game type of stuff from Burton, but they didn't do that with him at Alabama. I'm not saying he can't do it. It's just the only thing you didn't see often from him, but he still had some plays where he showed some really good after the catch ability. So I think he could do it all. So again, in the third round, with that kind of upside, I think it's an incredible potential pick here for the Bengals.
I love that pick for him. I feel like one of the things that have held the Bengals back is being one of the most predictable teams in the NFL. Like a lot of times that, they'll stay in 11 personnel 70% of the time, right? And I don't know if Burton changes that portion of it, but the idea of being able to move him around the formation, you really don't know where he's going to line up. Jamar Chase took a lot of those slants, a lot of that underneath stuff that you were kind of describing last year. I'd rather him not. I do. And then I think Burton as a deep threat is something that Tyler Boyd has never given the Cincinnati Bengals. So I really think that pick could be a home run. I kind of agree with everything that you said on that point.
Stress the defense, right? He just gives another opportunity to stress the defense, especially vertically. Him and Chase on the field, Higgins for as long as he's here. It gives them an unbelievable opportunity to stress the defense. So that's what I love about it.
That read of Burrow being able to stress, even Gesicki out there at different points will give him a little bit of this, but just a guy that can stretch the seam, make the safety make a decision, draw that safety down the box. I think that's something that you didn't see in any point of 2022 when Burrow had to adjust to the cover two shells that everybody was throwing at him. Everybody was stupid in 2021, and they showed us that look all the time. But I think you're going to get a little bit more of that now, at least like two-man looks with the safety position, where I think Burrow can have some easy stuff to decipher with Burton out on the field, because if he sees that matchup, I think we're taking it. Moving on to the rest of the draft, I'm gonna just kind of skim through it or whatever. Is there anybody else that stood out? I know you brought up Eric All. I didn't know much about him either. I know that the surgery on his spinal web was earlier. He got past that, tore the ACL, whatever. I've been told mixed. This guy could have been first round. You hear all this crap or whatever. Like, you got that. I did watch Tanner McLaughlin a good amount before the draft too, so I thought that might be a guy that the Bengals target. You talked about the tight ends and how they collectively, you saw them taking the two picks in the draft on that one. Did you have like any thoughts or like anything that you want to expand on the two tight ends in particular?
Yeah, I don't have any strong opinions on the players per se. All when he was at Michigan, I thought you had said maybe first round potential or whatever it was. I mean, there was a point where he looked like a really productive player, battled the injuries, but he's been pretty productive as far as college goes. I'm just talking like strategy wise. The Packers do this every year where they'll pick 10 or 12 times, and when they have a need at a position, they attack it 2 or 3 times. When they needed a receiver last year, they took, I think, 3 receivers, and 2 of them have panned out so far. They took 2 tight ends last year, the Packers. And so I just like that as a strategy. So the Bengals, they don't get their Brock Bowers. I like bringing Gesicki in as well, just as an athletic playmaker, again, that complements everything else that they have. But between All and McLaughlin, if you find one good player out of those 2, okay, I'm not saying you have tight end solved, but you have a player that can contribute. So I just like that strategically. I mean, the only thing I don't love is maybe McKinley Jackson in the 3rd round. He's got that big nose tackle body. I don't think he's ready to play yet. It's a late 3rd rounder, so he's a developmental prospect. But again, if it
was a compensatory pick, the extra pick that we got. So
yeah, and so if I'm not saying the expectation is he comes in and replaces Reader or anything like that. I just think he's got a little ways to go. I think Cedric Johnson, the edge out of Ole Miss, was a nice developmental, athletic edge rusher who can add some pass rush juice. And then Matt Lee, the center, way in the 7th round at 237. Really productive player. Yeah, I think he's a productive player that might be able to start in a year. So from a draft perspective, I think it's about, I always say diversifying their portfolio, right? You have a potential year 2 starter in a Matt Lee. You have this incredible, I think, 1st round talent receiver that you get in the 3rd, and you have the 2 tight ends. So it's just like a really good mix of filling some roster needs, but with value players and guys that are going to contribute, not just in year 1, but down the line as well.
The Bengals did this too. I don't know if you noticed. We argue with rivals all the time, but Lamar Jackson put a spin move on us in 2019. Bengals come back, draft 3 linebackers in 2020, and they pan out. Like it's Logan Wilson, it's Pratt, it's all these guys. Marcus Bailey, who I think just signed with the Cardinals yesterday, but they drafted all those guys, and Akeem Davis-Gaither. So they did that in like a 2-year span and just threw bodies at the position. I feel like McKinley Jackson's a part of that strategy that you kind of outlined that the Packers do. And then they did the same thing with tight end too. Tight end is a position that the Bengals have neglected for like the last, I don't know, since Tyler Eifert was here. So, like, our fan base, I think, is pretty excited about the tight ends in general.
I think tight end's a tricky one around the NFL because, like I was saying earlier, I think if you have an elite one, it's really valuable. But I think the difference between, say, tight end 8 and tight end 20 isn't that big around the NFL. So it's tough to, like, really invest in it unless you truly have one of those top guys. And they just haven't had the opportunity to really have access to those guys over the last few years.
Right. Assuming perfect health, assuming everybody's there, whatever. What do you see for the Bengals this upcoming season? In regards to, you know, what you saw maybe last year in contrast to currently right now as they're projected, do you have any thoughts on where you think they play out in the AFC North, or what you see for, you know, their success level or lack of success?
I think the roster is excellent. Of course, it comes down to Burrow's health. If he's playing the way we know that he's capable of, the way he was in 21 and 22, I think they're as good as it gets in the AFC. I like the moves that they've made on both sides of the ball. I think shoring up the safety position, bringing back Von Bell and bringing in Geno Stone, I think helps some of those weaknesses that they had last year. So yeah, I think Cincinnati's in great position. The question is going to be that division, because if I was on a podcast for the Steelers, Ravens, or Browns, I'd probably be saying similar things. I think the Bengals might have the best upside of any of those AFC North teams, because I think Burrow at his best is a top 3 quarterback. So I think them and the Ravens have the best chance because of the quarterback position. But it's a loaded division once again. You know, the Ravens they've lost some pieces, but still have a good nucleus. The Browns have an excellent roster. We'll see what happens with their quarterback situation. And I think the Steelers have done a great job with all of their decisions. It's just a matter if they get anything out of Russell Wilson or Justin Fields at QB. So the AFC is tough. The North is tough, but I think Cincinnati's done a great job getting back on track, keeping the roster strong, and, you know, a healthy Burrow, I think, gives them a chance to get back to the Super Bowl.
I agree. I mean, the division is the biggest thing that I feel like the Bengals got to go over. When you look at, like, the Chiefs run, or you look at, like, the Patriots run when they were on fire or whatever, it's an easier path, I feel like, in their division. And the AFC North is no joke. Steve, can you tell everyone where they can find your stuff? What are you working on currently right now, and how can they follow you and do all that good stuff?
Yeah, the biggest one's the PFF NFL podcast. That's where I spend most of my time, or 3 days a week throughout the season and the offseason. Appreciate you. So yeah, PFF NFL podcast, and then on Twitter, PFF_Steve. All
right, Steve. So I want to thank you again for, you know, we had a little bit of short notice stuff there. So you've been so awesome with your time. I appreciate you as always. Steve Palazzolo from PFF. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. I know that we need to make sure that we follow Steve on there. If you have not done that already, Steve Palazzolo does a really excellent pod that I check out all the time with him and Sam Monson on PFF. Make sure that you get a chance to check out that. I think it gives you a good perspective on other teams in the NFL. I think it gives you a perspective on other guys, like, in our division. There's so many different things that they talk about, and I think one of the things that I always kind of try to promote for everyone is, like, educating yourself on what other teams are doing too, because a lot of times we'll kind of condemn or, like, shoot down, you know, what the Bengals are doing at different spots, and then when you kind of listen to other organizations' problems, you're like, oh damn, they got the same issues that we got too. It's very, very important, I feel like, to get other perspectives from, like, other teams outside the division. Get it from not just Wincinnati pod. Actually, no, just only listen to Wincinnati pod. That's the only thing that really matters at all. In the grand scheme of things too, we want to make sure that we're eating the correct food. So none other than Midwest barbecue. Let's roll it up.
Wings are so smooth.
669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. Make sure y'all go check out Midwest Best Barbecue, one of the best spots in the entire world. My favorite chicken wing, my favorite half and half. Also, with the schedule releases probably coming out, I think next Thursday, the 15th, make sure you check out fansofcincy.com. That is the number one place to go and get your travel stuff all organized, get everything ready to go. Make sure that you can get with like minds, other Bengals fans, that you can get together and say, hey, we're going to rock out, we're going to go crazy, and we're going to do this together and go travel to different cities, and we're going to do it at an affordable price, and we're going to do it the right way. Fansofcincy.com. I don't really have much other than that. I wanted to just make sure that we gave y'all some good content in the middle of the week. Hopefully this is helping you out in the middle of your day. Hopefully this is giving you a little bit more clarity on some of the draft picks as like a final recap and run and like the wrap up the whole draft thing. Since the draft or whatever, this has been highly talked about and, posted and everything like that. Joe Burrow is back at practice doing his thing. I thought like Shiesty would come out here and kind of like just, flick it around a little bit, to see him throwing 50-yard bombs like the first practice. I don't want this to be a situation like last year with the calf. We're in May, my boy. We got 3 more months, May, June, July, August. Yeah, we got season start like September 7th. So we got like 4 months before the season even starts. I'm not interested in him going crazy right now. I want him to chill out. Just ramp it up. Burrow said he's going to listen to his body a lot more. Y'all got to make sure y'all tell me in the comments, what do you think about that? Somebody asked me this yesterday. They were like, do you think that Burrow should play in the preseason? I was like, no. I think that Burrow should be playing in the joint practices. I think that I would like to see him in that. I want to see the offensive line, though, collectively play in the preseason together. But to see Shiesty out there throwing around the back passes, you're also getting reports from people saying that he's communicating, talking directly with Gesicki through every single play. You got all this stuff. Like, everything's coming to fruition. Everything is happening like right before our eyes. And I'm really excited about, where this team is going. I can't yet say I know definitively that this roster is better, but currently right now it feels so much better. Steve Palazzolo was just talking about, like the Ravens, and I get it. I just think that I saw a graphic yesterday, and it was showing the Bengals have retained 75%, which is 6th best in the NFL, like their own players and stuff, and nobody else in our division was even on the list. So there's a lot of turnover for a lot of different teams in our division. That would be my number one argument against that. Aside from that, I do think that they're all formidable opponents, but I also think that the Bengals had the 6th hardest schedule in NFL history this past season, and they were 1 game missing the playoffs. So I know it's like this trendy thing, like as Bengals fans, to like not be a homer and like talk trash about your own team. I just can't do it. I think they're in excellent shape. I think they're in a good spot. I feel really good about where the roster's at. I think that they should improve some depth pieces, particularly on the interior offensive line. I also entertain like another running back, like a Samaje Perine, if they had the opportunity to do so. There's in a veteran corner, like a Steven Nelson, Xavier Howard. If you could sign me up for what's his name? You know what I'm talking about, Stephon Gilmore. Sign me up for him too. But we're just nitpicking, and now at this point, we're just going through the whole entire roster with a fine-tooth comb. But to see Burrow coming out there throwing that crazy like that early on is insane to me. I want to thank you all for following me, making sure that y'all keep on supporting the Wincinnati Pod. Make sure y'all go on Twitter and follow Wincinnati Pod. Make sure you follow New Stripe City. Also, newstripecity.com. I think it's got some new clothes on the way as well. Always zimhude.com. with me. And that is going to be it for me. And I appreciate y'all as always. Rock out with the free world. Hooday. It's an exciting time to be a Bengals fan.
I'm AC. We got a special show as always.
The voice of the Bengals. Dan Ford, Willie Anderson, Corey Dillon.
The name of this thing is called Wincinnati, and I'm not going to stop.
Talk to us about that roller coaster season.
I'm still going to give you the same AJ. I'm going to work as hard as I can to be the best.
Always working ever since I met y'all, boy.
I gotta get you a top 5 receiver.
Better, man.
It was good. Bro, watch out for us.